Have you ever walked the same path at the same time, day after day, and started to feel like the birds already knew you were coming? Not just that they happened to be there, but that they'd adjusted to you, as if you'd become part of their world without ever meaning to. You might have dismissed it. You might have thought, it's just coincidence. But what if it isn't? What if, while you were moving through your own routine, the birds were quietly building a picture of who you are? This feeling, this fragile moment of something almost like recognition, sits at the very edge of our awareness, and most of us never stop to ask, if birds keep following your routine, what exactly are they learning? Welcome to Wild Perception, where we lean into those quiet edges, the spaces between human life and the wild creatures that share it. Today, we're stepping into a story that's happening all around us, one that rarely gets told, about presence, memory, and the silent observers who may know us better than we realize. Think about your morning. Maybe you open a window and breathe in the cool air. Maybe you step outside with a cup in your hand, or you walk to a bus stop beneath the same row of trees. At first, those small winged shapes in the branches seemed indifferent. A sparrow flits away, a crow watches from a wire, a magpie struts across the grass, barely glancing up. But over time, something shifts. The same blackbird now stays on the lawn instead of fleeing. The same little finch tilts its head when you pass. The same crow hops a few steps closer, as if expecting something. You haven't done anything dramatic, you've just been consistent, and that, to a bird, might be everything. You see, birds live in a world of patterns. Their survival depends on reading the fine print of their environment, light cycles, insect hatches, the footfall of predators, and yes, the routines of the humans who move through their territory. Research has shown that many bird species, especially corvids, pigeons, and even small garden birds, can recognize individual human faces. Not only that, they remember those faces for years. They link faces to experiences. A person who once offered food becomes a signal of safety. A person who made a sudden noise becomes a risk to avoid. And a person who simply walks by, predictably, gently, without threat, becomes a known element in the landscape, a feature as reliable as the old oak tree or the bend in the path. So what might a bird be learning when you show up at the same time every day? First, it learns your tempo. Birds have internal clocks that are astonishingly precise. A robin learns exactly when the sun will strike a particular patch of soil, because that's when the worms rise. In the same way, garden birds can learn the rhythm of your schedule. They notice that at 7:30 the back door opens and a figure steps out into stillness. They notice that at 4 in the afternoon the same figure returns, slower this time, pausing by the fence. They don't need a watch, they just need you to be you. Over time, your presence becomes a marker, a kind of gentle clock that shapes their own decisions. The blackbird may start to sing from a lower branch just before you appear, as if preparing. The house sparrows may gather loosely in the hedge, not exactly waiting, but no longer startled. But they're learning more than timing. They're learning your shape, your gait, your way of moving through space. Every human walks a little differently. You might roll your shoulders, or keep your hands in your pockets, or slow down by the flowering bush. To a bird, these small variations are like a signature. With enough repetition, they can distinguish you from another person who walks the same path, even if you're wearing different clothes. What's more, they learn to read your direction of attention. If your eyes are soft, your movements unhurried, and your path never veers aggressively towards them, they file that away. You become classified not as predator, not as rival, but a neutral constant. And in the wild, a neutral constant is the beginning of something rare. Perhaps you talk to yourself, or you pause and look up at the sky, or you whistle absently. Birds notice that too. Many species are remarkably sensitive to human vocal tones. An agitated voice makes them vigilant. A quiet, melodic sound can hold their curiosity. If you ever find a robin watching you while you hum, or a crow cocking its head when you speak softly on the phone, there's a good chance it's not just hearing noise, it's learning your emotional texture. It's learning that your mood, as expressed through sound, doesn't spike into danger. In a world full of sudden bangs, rushing children and barking dogs, your calm becomes a form of cover. You are, without realizing it, a patch of predictable peace. And then there's the matter of trust. Trust in the wild isn't emotional in the human sense, it's behavioral. Trust is built from repeated, non-threatening exposure. When a bird decides you're safe, it begins to shorten its flight distance. The invisible circle that once kept it 20 feet away shrinks to 10 feet, then 5. It might keep one eye on you, but its body stays relaxed. It might turn its back to forage, a small but profound gesture of surrender. What's happening here isn't just habituation, it's a form of silent negotiation. The bird is learning that it can lower its defenses in your presence and still be okay. And if you stay consistent, that trust deepens into something approaching familiarity. Now, here's where the story takes a deeper turn. Because if birds are learning all of this about you, they might also be learning something about themselves in relation to you. A crow that follows your walk to the park might be mentally mapping not just your route, but the likelihood that you'll pause on a certain bench and eat a sandwich. Pigeons in a city square can recognize not only the person who feeds them, but the specific bag that person carries. They're making connections, stringing together events into a narrative that stars you. You become, in their mind, a sequence of possibilities. The interesting thing is, once they learn this, they start to invest in the relationship. A magpie might begin to show up a few minutes early. A bluetit might follow you along the garden path, flitting from branch to branch, not because it needs something, but because your route overlaps with its own and the company feels safe. We often think of following as something that happens when an animal wants food, but that's only part of the picture. Sometimes following is a sign of cognitive mapping, curiosity, or even a simple kind of companionship. Young birds, especially, learn by watching. A fledgling songbird might trail you for 20 yards simply because your movement flushes out insects. To you, it's a walk. To the bird, it's a masterclass in foraging. If you repeat the route daily, that bird incorporates your rhythm into its education. Without any direct interaction, you become a teacher. What does it feel like to be on the receiving end of all this quiet attention? It can feel a bit like being seen, not watched in an invasive way, but observed with a gentle, non-judgmental focus. There's a soft ache in realizing that a wild creature who owes you nothing has woven you into its day. It's easy to go through life feeling invisible, your routines unnoticed, your presence blending into the background. But those birds, the ones that tilt their heads, the ones that no longer startle, the ones that seem to appear just as you do, they are proof that your quiet existence registers somewhere beyond human eyes. Maybe you've experienced a moment like this. You sat down on a familiar bench after a long day, and a robin landed on the armrest. It didn't sing, it didn't beg, it just stood there, inches away, with a kind of shared stillness. Or a crow walked parallel to you along a campus lawn, matching your pace for a few magical seconds, as if you were old acquaintances who didn't need words. You might have felt a swell of something tender, something you couldn't name. That feeling wasn't just sentiment, it was the natural response to being acknowledged across the vast divide of species. It was a moment of mutual perception. And perhaps that's the deepest lesson these birds might be learning, not just your schedule or your appearance, but the simple fact that you are a presence worthy of attention. They recognize you as a distinct entity in a chaotic world. They grant you the status of known. In return, you begin to see them not as generic birds, but as individuals too. The magpie with the slightly crooked tail, the blackbird that always sings after the rain, the crow with the lighter patch on its beak. A bridge forms, silent and strong, made entirely of repeated, uneventful moments. We live in an age of noise, where connection often feels like something that must be announced, proven, or performed. But in the wilder margins of our lives, a different kind of connection is quietly thriving. It doesn't need names, it doesn't need close-up footage or viral moments. It just needs you, showing up as yourself day after day, while the birds slowly, patiently learn the shape of your life. If you ever start to feel that the birds are following your routine, ask yourself, what have I been teaching them? Perhaps you've been teaching them that there are still humans who move gently through the world, that even a quiet life can create ripples felt by other hearts, that trust can be built in the smallest increments on the most ordinary mornings. Maybe, without ever intending to, you've become a kind of landmark in their aerial map, a fixed point of calm in a landscape of uncertainty. Maybe it's not random that the magpie appears when you sip your tea. Maybe the crow's punctuality isn't just about scraps. Maybe, in their own unspoken way, they've been noticing you all along. And maybe that noticing is a quiet gift we don't talk about enough. Because to be known by the wild, even in a small way, is to be woven into something larger than our own story. Thank you for walking this path with me today. If you've ever had a bird follow your routine, look at you a little too knowingly, or share a moment of stillness that felt strangely significant, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Not for engagement, not for the algorithm, but because these small personal accounts matter. They remind us that we are not alone in our daily orbits. So please, if you feel like sharing, leave your story below. And until next time, stay perceptive.